talking to you from Washington, D.C. in the United States. Our moderator, Anna Tadevosyan, is in Yerevan, Armenia. This webinar is, as some of you know already, part of the International Sports Programming Initiative of the State Department Sports Diplomacy Division, and it's produced by World Learning and Digital Communication Network Southeast Europe Hub. So I would like, if possible, if you could mute your microphones when you are not speaking. This would help to actually have a better flow. So the premise of our virtual conversation today is that sports is in itself a metaphor for life and has an implicit educational value. For example, last night, and this is a pretty painful story for me, Anna's soccer team, Armenia, which is football, we call it soccer here, won a game against Romania, the country I was born in, Romania. So that game was an amazing game, despite the fact that we lost, and had all the ingredients of life. It has ups and downs, and it had leadership and passion and happiness and despair on our side, mostly twists and turns, explosion of joy on the streets of Yerevan, and the opposite, as you could imagine, on the streets of Bucharest in Romania. So one can teach through sports by just telling the story of every single game. This is what, for example, our friend Sam Vincent, the former NBA player, does working with us in sports diplomacy in his championship principles training program. Some of you actually are participating in that. Sam is a storyteller. So he tells the story of his career, of his games, Michael Jordan and the other players, and he teaches that way. Today's panelists are taking those teachable moments and the symbolic value of sports and making them into something more sophisticated: programs, curriculum, strategies to teach and learn. And they're doing this all over the world, as you could see, looking at the cast of characters in this webinar. So this is what we are going to do today. A few elements of the administration of this webinar. By now, you are all very familiar with Zoom, maybe more familiar than you want it to be. We really count on your questions in the chat room. And keep in mind that our goal is beyond the current conversation. It's networking. We want to create a network. Our network has 1,500 people already. We wanted to stay in touch with the speakers, with the panelists. So in order to accomplish that, please introduce yourselves. Tell us a little bit about what you do, where you are from, and any contributions you could make to the theme through questions and thoughts that you might have. That being said, as you said, I showed you the map, a little bit earlier. So we are, all over the world in this webinar, looking, at the speakers through Zoom, restreaming on Facebook and YouTube. So all conditions are met to actually have a wonderful conversation. And I want to thank so much to our panelists and everybody who has been involved in this program in order to put it together. That being said, again, Anna, you have the floor, and I'm sorry you beat us yesterday.
Thank you, Vlad, and I'm glad you mentioned our historic victories, because we are on the top of the table with the team as Germany having in our group. So we are very happy now in Armenia, and everybody is talking only about these 3 games. So, okay, I will not take long about our excitement. I will start to introduce our speakers, and our first speaker is from Portugal, Bruno Avelar Rosa. He's a partner at Cantara Sports. Welcome, Bruno, and let's hear from Bruno how their organization using sports to create the educational programs. Bruno, welcome.
Well, Vlad and Anna, first of all, thank you for the invitation and for the opportunity of being here with people from so many different countries with such experience in the sport for development topic. I'm very glad. I want to say an hello to some Portuguese friends that are in attendance also. So a big hug to all of them. Well, I will share my presentation. It is only a slide, because it is not only what I want to share with you all. It's not only the efficacy of the programs in terms of sport for education, in terms of sport for development programs, but it is the principle. And the principle, it is something that must be remarked and highlighted in a very deep manner in every action an organization should take. First of all, when we talk about sport for development organization, we don't need to think only in organizations that are working in some specific setting that needs to be developed in terms of human rights. For example, a regular sports club in a regular city, in a regular world, can do sports for development also, because they are community agents and they are places where people go to improve their citizenship. Not with this purpose, but they improve their citizenship awareness and involvement through the practice of sport. So the big challenge, in my opinion, is to assume that a sport organization, a club, a federation, a municipality with responsibility in sport projects, has a very important responsibility in terms of impact. So it's not only a matter of teaching sports, of teaching teaching motor skills. It is also a matter of impact the community in topics like gender equality, volunteering in sports, through the sports, in human rights values awareness, in social inclusion, in vocational and educational training. So it is important for the club to establish these connections with the local hospital, with the local school, with the local municipality, with the local elderly people center, with the local organizations, in order to share with them the sports practice, in order to spread the values of sport through the community. And of course, the most important agent in the middle of this process is the coach. The coach does not only teaches or coaches football or soccer or karate or whatever. He must have an educational intentionality. And I took this slide from Mark Pibum. Maybe you know, it's a researcher that works a lot in these sport for development topics. And this slide for me is very clear about what we should do as a coaches or as a physical education teachers. The coaches, sport coaches especially, we are very, very, very keen and very competent in terms of physics and technique and tactical prescription. But when we talk about psychological setting, psychological approach, or social psychological development, or human rights values, or personal development, or citizenship, okay, we are aware about the impact of sport in citizenship, but how to do it? How can I train resilience? I just say to the kids, you must be more resilient than you are. No, me as a coach, how can I teach? How can I coach resilience? Or how can I coach discipline? Or how can I coach self-respectful through the sports practice? I mean, not through the rhetoric way, but using a very explicit didactic tool, that is the motor task. So we must use also I'm sorry, and I'm just finishing. We lose we must use the practice through the sport tasks as a tool to improve. The feedback is essential when we do, if you want to a certain task to develop resilience, we must focus on the importance of the resilience to do a certain task, because values through sport, education through sport, doesn't arise as a spontaneous generation, must be intentionally taught. And this is the main principle. And this is what we are doing in different organizations. Me in person, I was involved in many, and now with Cantor Sports in Middle East, and also in Portugal with the Ethics in Sport National Plan. This is the mindset. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruno. Thank you. We will go to our next speaker from India, Rekha De. She's a senior advisor at UI India. Rekha, welcome to our webinar. Reka, can you hear us? You are muted.
Okay. Hello everyone. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can. Now it's good.
Yeah, thank you, Vlad and Anna, for inviting me for this webinar. Greetings to all of you from India. I represent Yuva India as the senior advisor, and I personally hold experience in sport for development for over 15 years. Yuva was founded in 2007, and it's a 12-year-old organization which has been working with tribal girls in the state of Jharkhand. For people who know the dynamics, the demographics of India, Jharkhand is one of the states which is one of the lowest in terms of human development, high incidence of child marriage and human trafficking, and we work primarily with indigenous tribal children. This was founded by Franz Gassler, the founder of Yuba. And in 12 years, the program has become one of the best case studies existing in this part of the world. The key things that we do in the program is first that the children are trained in football. We have had significant achievements in terms of sending our players, our coaches to different tournaments. In addition, the most important thing which was realized by the organization, that until the education side is not held strongly, it is difficult to take a break out of the vicious circle of poverty. And that's how the Yuva School has been a very important arm of the whole program, wherein it is a college preparatory school kind of a method which is adopted. And right from schooling to placing each and every child with higher education is what is done by the program. And we have placed many children, and we are finding full scholarship opportunities with different universities. Those aware of the education side of education in this part of the world, Kriya University, Ashoka Asian University, these are one of the topmost universities. And our students are getting full scholarship. And every child plays football and attends school. Now, the whole understanding is that it is not essential to chase numbers, and most there are many organizations who want to bring impact through sport to a large number of people. But what we believe is that if we are able to take one child out of the poverty circle through effective education and dignified employment, that girl herself is empowered to take at least 6 to 7 people within her family and friend circle out of the same social structure in which they are living. And that is actually proving to be very correct. And their incomes have improved. That is allowing them to take decisions of their lives in terms of their marriage or whether they want to where they want to work, and various decisions around financial independence. Yuva today has got about 550 children in the school. And the next tall task which the organization is doing is to build a physical school in the state of Jharkhand. The land has already been procured, and we are inviting partners and people who can support the building, wherein this will be a residential training school, so that children are also away from their homes for a reasonable amount of time, so that they are totally mentored and trained for a better life. I'm sharing just one slide which describes our achievements. If you can see, these are like a number of them. So just in summary, we have represented apparently in almost the top tournaments and university programs in the US and Europe as well. And most of our funders have supported the football as well as the education side of the program, which has been very encouraging for us. And in 2019, we won the Laureus Sport for Good Award. And that's how it's taken about 11 years to develop a very high quality program wherein every child is actually placed through proper education. And even if the higher education is not possible with the university, we are trying to get them the right vocational training so that they can stand on their feet always. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Reka. This is amazing job you do to empower the girls, young girls, and take them out of the poverty. This is great. I'm sure we'll have lots of questions, but now I will move to our next speaker, Catherine Pitcher. She's from US. She's a consultant at Palestine Sports for Life. Catherine, welcome to our webinar, and floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity and for all of the guests in attendance. Thank you so much for coming. Let me just get my slides up. Here we go. And let's see. Oops, now I can't see them. One moment, sorry.
Of course, take your time.
Were you able to see them just now? Because I stopped being able to see them as soon as I pressed share. Here we go. Okay, let me minimize. There we go. So sorry. I had this all rehearsed beforehand. But I'll just get started. My name's Catherine, and I'm here from Palestine Sports for Life. And we are a sports for development organization based in the West Bank. And it's been around for about 10 years. And we work to respond to the developmental needs and marginalized Palestinian communities through the development of programs that are in accordance with the SDGs and to support the SDGs. And who am I? So I'm an English program coordinator at PS4L, sorry. I'm also a EDM candidate at the Harvard Graduate School of Education, and I'm focused on SEL and 21st century skill development in international education policy. And so like working on this program in Palestine recently was really a wonderful merge of my background, because I've been a long time a classroom teacher, and I'm also a former professional swim coach. And that's actually my real kind of claim to fame, is that I was actually Katie Ledecky's first coach. I don't know if any of you follow swimming. I was her coach until she was 10, which was only 4 years before she got her first world record, pretty amazingly. And what we do at Palestine Sports for Life is that we integrate the principles of sports for development with project-based learning to create an environment that is rigorous, engaging, student-centered, and empowering. So this hits all of the major components of the sports for development framework and theory, as well as integrates with best practices in education around engaging students, including students, letting students really drive the work in the classroom or on the pitch, wherever that work may be. In this model, where that learning occurs really becomes secondary. It's not about the place, it's about the activity and the community development. And that through this program, we were able to develop, through this methodology, we were able to develop a program that supports multiple benchmarks towards the achievement of SDG 4, including primary and secondary education, skills for work, sustainable development and global citizenship. And I think there's also an argument of supporting 4.5 around equity. We had a large teacher training component of this program, so that also supports 4.C around developing teachers. And just to tell you a little bit more about it, we had kind of three main components. One was sports, one was English programming, which were really student-driven, inquiry-based projects where they had to use the English language as they could in the execution of the projects, but the goal was really the project, not like rote learning of English. And then we also had a component that we called mentorship, which was led by social workers from the region to help coach the students through deeper understanding of themselves, their goals, their dreams, their desires. And all three of these, sports and mentorship and English or inquiry-based, project-based learning, were coordinated to run our program. So I will say I'm very excited to be here today and to learn from the rest of the speakers as well. So thank you all very much. Oh, and also if you want to connect also just to learn anything more about the organization, here's some of that information. I can also put it in the links in chat later.
Yeah, thank you. Please put everything, all the information about your organization or work you do in the chat, so people will connect with you, and emails or your social media, so they will contact you. I'm sure everybody will be very interested to do so. So we'll move to our next speaker is Sol Contreras Ledesma. She's from Argentina. She's a CEO and founder in Excel Sports Talent. Sol, welcome to our webinar. Sol, can you hear us?
Here we go.
Okay, perfect.
Well, a pleasure to meet all of you. Thank you. As Anna has gave me the introduction, I'm from Argentina. I have more than 14 years working on soccer with men in this case for more than 10 years. As a lawyer, in my first period, I've been getting in touch with a lot of different soccer players since they were young youths and elite players in Argentina and worldwide. And through that experience, gave me the knowledge and the understanding of the importance of education in soccer. Since then, I've been working hard trying to find is how we can improve their skills, how we can short the distance between Argentina, in this case, South America, and Europe or the US or the different continents. So through that and understanding and listening to soccer players' needs, and after that, being able to get in touch with our Argentinian national team, soccer national team, I realized it's like that having a program to help, their personal skills will help them to upgrade or develop their talents. So that's the reason I share quite much what Bruno was sharing about coaches as well, that even though they have a lot of I would say physical skills, not every not every coach has the old cognitive, psychological, personal development aspects so as to help the kids in the personal development. When we are speaking here about education, for me, education words are, I will resume it in one word, that it's called passion. For us in Argentina, it's like sports is quite important. And what we can teach and learn through sports is the importance of developing our passions. Not only our passions, but also our dreams, are also important. In these difficult moments we are facing, it's important for kids to keep in mind and to keep alive, the importance of chase their dreams, to reach their dreams. That's why it's like I develop with my team a program that it's specific related for men, another is specific related for women, and another is specifically related for coaches. It's like when we're speaking about education, we're speaking about an integral word that we need to work together. It's like all the time giving different, try to help to make an integral development. On the other side, after many years working with soccer players, they say me once, you know, Sol, when I become a human being, I become a better soccer player. And I found that word that it was quite important. I say, what do you do? You know, it's like so as to read, to become a better human being. And I say, one of the things I first do, for example, is like I try to say thank you every morning instead of, and try to think what I do so as to make my word or my soccer word better. You know, it's like, so when in the programs do we develop and we how we say and we taste it and we promote, it's like to become old people, you know, old people, girl, kids, young, to be protagonists of their lives, you know. So this is for us is quite important. I'm a person in my personal life, I always go through my goals, through my dreams. And I think that in these difficult moments, also sports is an important tool. So for example, problem solving. Sometimes through our minds, we cannot solve problems, but on the field, we can understand how we are, how we act, how we react. You know, so I found that sometimes in some schools, for example, they say, you know, for us, education is very important, and they keep aside, you know, sports. When, in my personal opinion, it's the other way around sometimes, because not all the kids need the same. Not all the kids arrive to the same point or to their goals in the same way. So in some cases, of course, it's important to develop our brains and our minds, but through sports also, we have another way to reach to Rome, I will say. So I would like to share, not to be so go on deep on the contents itself of our programs, but just to have some little ideas, is we start speaking about, for example, about human rights. It's like about your rights and your obligations. We start there. Afterwards, we speak about cognitive aspects, emotional aspects. We speak about also how our brains, our cognitive, what are our differences between men and women. We speak also about the feminine cycle. So we have difference that we speak about also communication, because effective communication, that's also a very important part of this project, because sometimes we say one thing, but we do another thing. And in my personal, thinking a little more, sometimes soccer players said, for example, oh, I want to be the best. And afterwards I say, what do you do for being the best? Because becoming the best, it's not only on the field, on the soccer field, that's 90 minutes. It's for being the best, you need to know that you have to say no for a lot of things, you know. It's not only think what you want, but also think what you are not, you're gonna leave aside. So actually, I'm not only working for Excel Sport Channel, that's the company do I work, and we give these courses. And I do also work at head of international department of our association. Argentinian is calling AFA. So being able to work in an international group, I also have the chance to learn about different cultures. So when we are speaking about sports education, we are speaking about is that it's a must for us to learn to listen as we are doing now. Is what happened, what's going on in India, what's going on in Portugal, what's going on in Canada, what's going on in Argentina, because it's not education. It's not only about me, it's not only about you, it's about everybody. No, so it's like to upgrade our knowledge and our skills. I think that for kids will be also quite interesting, not only teach what happened to that neighbor, but also share what's going on about in another part of the world. Well, this is just for me as a closing. Whatever any question you could have, I will be pleased, of course, to share the content of our programs, our capacitations, our workshops, and the way we work. We are not conventional. We do not give a class, a master class, just speaking like this and sharing our knowledge. Because for me, the knowledge I'm not the one that has the knowledge. For me, the kids had the knowledge. For me, the youth had the knowledge. So part of my mission is to promote that kids become, like the protagonists of their lives. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sol. It was very interesting. I'm sure that we'll have questions for you after. So, and our next speaker, the last one, is Brian Suskevich. He's from US. He's Chief Executive Strategist at Coaches Across Continent, the organization that I know very well. They do a good job. And now Brian will let us know what they do exactly in details. Brian, welcome.
Good morning, everybody. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I'll try and keep this very, very short and get into the fun stuff, because in a moment or two, I'm going to explain exactly how Coaches Across Continents educates through purposeful play, and hopefully then you can take some of those ideas and implement them into your programming. As Anna said, we actually work in partnership all over the world in about 132 different countries, and we consider ourselves a global leader in using purposeful play and education outside the classroom to address the UN SDGs and the Convention on the Rights of the Child. So a little bit about our organization. The whole top half there, we have a consultancy brand, and that works with governments, corporations, and foundations. And then we have a delivery brand, which is CAC, and that works directly with organizations and with coaches. And I use the word coach extremely broadly. A coach is anyone that's engaging children in sports. So that is coaches, teachers, young leaders, community leaders, social workers, really anyone that's working on the interest of the child and looking to educate. So a little bit about myself and why I'm at Coaches Across Continents. I've got a master's degree in education. I got my training United States Soccer Federation A license. I was a professional coach. Catherine, I did swim, and I do know a ton of Olympians, so that's pretty cool. I swam in college as well. And I like traveling and surfing. So Coaches Across Continents is my dream job. How can I combine sport, education, and travel? Now we get to the fun stuff. And you would have heard some of this in different words already from some of the other speakers. And the first one for us is it's intentional. And right off the bat, Bruno said that in his presentation. Sport is not good. I'm going to repeat that because some of you guys might think I'm misspeaking. Sport is not inherently good. What it is inherently powerful. And how we use sport will determine positive or negative outcomes. So we want to make sure that if we think that sport is going to have a good outcome, that we do everything possible to make sure that's the case. And for Coaches Across Continents, that's the background and the backdrop of purposeful play and education outside the classroom. How can we harness that power to provide an educational outcome? Number 2 and number 3 go sort of hand in hand. Everything that we do is, and again, Bruno said it with pedagogy, and then I believe Catherine said it with student-driven. Everything is based on an educational theory we call chance to choice. Chance is sort of where you were born, the society, the country, the family, circumstances of where you're born, and ultimately as you grow and develop, hopefully getting into the concept of choice, which is really a problem-solving adult. They can hypothesize, recognize, analyze solutions, implement trial and error, and then learn from those. And that's quite a big skill set. So you have to know, for us, the pedagogy is chance to choice educational theory. There must be a pedagogy behind what you're doing. For us, we're looking to create self-directed learners, and that gets into how do children learn? And there's sort of 2 ways of teaching. One is didactic teaching. This is my nose. You know, what is it? It's my nose, and they repeat after you, and they only can learn as much as the teacher knows. The other one is sort of question-driven, where as coaches and facilitators during an activity, we'll ask specific questions knowing that we will guide children towards the answers. We will give children, I think Reka also said it, you know, everything is child-centered and student-driven from Catherine. So we let the students make a lot of decisions and the players make a lot of decisions. And then finally, it has to be fun. Sol said, you know, she used the word passion, and that's absolutely number 1. So for us, everything is fun, It's experiential. As a coach, I try and do as little talking as possible. And we use the rule 80-20. We try and have the kids playing 80% of the time because that's where the learning is happening. And all the studies that are coming out are showing that information gets cemented into your consciousness through active participation, not through sort of listening and absorbing. I also want to give you, if I've got a minute or so, which I think I do, what this looks like in practice. So I've picked, today is about education through sport. And we have over 500 games on all 17 UN SDGs and many, many of the targets, and every single article of the Convention on the Rights of the Child. So this is about article number 28, the right to education. And I'll give you about 10 seconds to look it through very, very briefly. But it starts as a regular game of football. And what we've done is we've changed the analogies and the metaphors within the game. And so at first you have 2 goals, 1 on each side, 1 for each team as normal. And if you score, instead of getting a point, that represents completing another grade of education. We know that I believe it's UNICEF or the UN said for every grade of education you complete, it's 10% more income into your lifetime earnings. So if you score a goal, the coach gives you 2 more cones. You get to put them anywhere you want on the perimeter of the field. So now your team is shooting towards 2 different targets. The players choose where they want to go. They choose their strategy on offense and defense. And the more goals you score, the more education you complete, and ultimately the more opportunities your team, which in this case is both the individual and the community, have a chance to progress. And you'll see in some of the rules there, we add in slightly more nuances. I want to go back to the first and fourth point that I made, intentional and fun. So what we've done is added rules and regulations into this game so that the learning outcome is not about, did I win, did I lose, did I learn how to pass or shoot or dribble better? It's all about putting into their heads, 1, that they have the right to education, and 2, with more education comes more opportunity. And ultimately they choose a lot of things in it. So we get into self-directed learners. They are the captains and strategist makers within their own teams, how to do that. The coach is really just setting up the framework for this to happen. And then asking specific questions or guided questions so that they come to these learning outcomes. And then most of all, this game, if you can imagine it in your head, it's chaos. We have, by the end, 5 or 6 goals. We've got 2 teams running around. We'll start throwing in 4 or 5 different soccer balls. And it's an absolute load of fun. So the kids are learning. It's fun. It's intentional. It's based on our pedagogy. And it helps to create what we think are lifetime learners, our self-directed learners, which have the skill sets necessary to succeed in life. So that's just an example of how we work at Coaches Across Continents. And hopefully that for you guys gave a chance to understand how you can use sport to teach, as opposed to using sport as just a hook to get people to the field so you can lecture them. That's it, Anna.
Thank you, Brian. I would suggest everybody to get in contact with Brian because the program is amazing and it can use everywhere in every single topic you can imagine. They have more than 500 games designed already. So I'll suggest everybody to have this program. So now I'll switch to Vlad, and he has some questions to our speakers. Vlad?
Great. So it's fascinating. So, I will remember what Brian said, sports is not inherently good, it's inherently powerful. I think it's an amazing statement, and actually it would help, everybody's work if we understand this aspect better. In relation to this, there is a question from Fadi Tabet, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced the name. What he says is that many donors look at numbers rather than impact when they look at the program. So this leads me to a question that Fadi did not ask, but I would like to ask about how do you measure success? How do you evaluate sports potential as an educational tool in your work? So let's start this time with Brian, and then we'll go to each one of the panelists. I think you're muted, Brian.
Sorry, can you repeat it just real quick? I was responding to Jaspreet, who was sending me a compliment. So
it's about impact. How do you measure impact? Because what Fadi Tebet said, that many donors, you know, he's looking about programs that are funded by different donors, look at numbers rather than impact. And actually, you know, we work with the sports diplomacy division of the sports department of the State Department, and there's a constant preoccupation, you know, for them to actually measure, quantify impact. So what are the measurements that work for you?
Yeah, well, Coaches Across Continents, as we said, we're a little bit unique in that we have 4 different divisions. So we measure our impact based on division. So it's sometimes different with when we're working with a corporation who's looking at consumer engagement or likes on YouTube or something. And when we work directly with organizations and coaches. And so for us, and for this answer right now, I'm really going to focus, I think the audience is much more in terms of how do we measure impact on coaches, children, and organizations? And there are 3 distinct things. So one is numbers, but I agree completely with Reka. There's absolutely nothing wrong with saying we are going to focus on, I believe in your case, you said 550 girls at your school, and it really a depth of impact as opposed to a mass number of impact. And so for us, there's obviously the normal metrics, quantifiable metrics, how many kids, how often did they come, how long did they stay with the program. But for us, it's also a change in knowledge and change in behavior. And this takes time. And so you have to do both sort of baseline and end-line surveys, pre and post programming, as well as case studies, which you can really notice behavior change. The only thing I really want to say in this, change takes time. If you want to change behavior and you want to change community and do community development, it's not a matter of weeks, it's a matter of years and decades.
Definitely. So in the meantime, I'll go to the other panelists for the same question. And, you know, participants, please continue to ask questions. Raise your hand if you have a question also. And Anna is going to go to you a little bit later. So on the same question, measuring impact, Saul, what do you think?
I tried to here. Well, about measuring impact, came to my mind, and a very clear example. You know, I was working before with a soccer player on the importance of 2 cases. The first one, I was speaking with one girl, and her results, even though she was the one, she was the captain of the team. She was saying me, I'm not so secure with myself, you know. And speaking about this, we work after working, and I say, wait, when you feel so secure with yourself. And she was saying, because I do not have a very deep personal development. In concrete, this means that after working with her for a period of 2 months, more or less, she identifies that in this case she was lesbian, but she was not able to work on that idea, to understand and to accept her reality. So after working on this, so this I'm giving the example of working as a coach, as personal development. No, so this impact in her results on in the games. So by the end, after 4 months, she was hired in a team in Europe, you know, because her results became outstanding after she was able to work on this issue. Speaking also about impact, it's like, even though the kids sometimes they do have a lot of pressure, you know, on the soccer field in this case. So some of them, they were not able when there was a match and they were needing to define the game. You know, they were not having the strength. After working with them, you know, he said me, Sol, I understand that before I was in the soccer field and I was with my face back, looking to the ground. But after working with me, it's like I realized that they were able to make this little change. And this little change is a whole. But as Brian was saying, it takes time, of course, you know, but impacts when you're working with human beings, as I resume, definitely they are very, you have to be quite awake to understand and to listen to all the signs that start to appear after working with the different teams.
Yeah, and actually what you said a bit earlier, the impact on sports, on promoting diversity, the aspect of diversity that you mentioned, we found that very often in questions that are asked by audiences. And it's interesting and important that you gave that specific example in terms of, working through sports in dealing with issues that have something to do with the diversity. So let's see now, Reka, what do you think about, measurements, impact, of sports work?
All right. I'll mention my experience before. I've worked with on the other side of the table where I was working for a funding organization of $5 million only to sport for development in India. And I've had the opportunity of monitoring more than 15 programs in India. And when it comes to impact, truly speaking, behavior change is very difficult to record in numbers. Secondly, whatever you're producing in the reports, with no malintention or with no intention of overquoting what you're doing, but the tendency is to say that before the program started, it was say 50% participation of girls. The number of participation has increased to 78%, or the school attendance has gone from 30% to 70%. Now, is it possible to, my first question is it possible to really check the impact that is quoted in each and every report? It's physically not possible to go and check out each and every program. So number one is that I would refrain from using the word obsession, but the fact that the impact has to be recorded in numbers in my opinion, is fundamentally wrong. Here we are talking about changing the society. It cannot happen in numbers. It takes decades. I totally agree with Brian. I've been working in the grassroots for more than 15 years, and it takes decades to change mindsets because children are not existing in an independent environment. They have their parents. They have other gatekeepers in the society where there are people who are saying that your daughter is 15 years old. She needs to get married off. Now this is we are working with a whole society which needs to change its thought processes, and therefore it is not possible to quote the impact and the change in numbers. Coming back to what Yuva has done is it's taken a long time, and Franz, the founder, is an American, by the way, and he was not accepted first of all in a tribal society. He took a lot of time to have his presence. And from there, building the team and working with so many children and taking care of each and every person to participant to form teams, playing football, identifying the best players, sending them to different tournaments outside of the country, winning, and we have won the Guesties Cup. We have won the Nosti Cup. Stood third in the Nosti. I think in 2016, that's the cup we won. Now, handling the football side and bringing them back and educating them, and then finding scholarship for each and every student so that they are able to find proper higher education, so that they are able to settle down in their lives, and then they can help all the younger siblings and family. Now, this really cannot be recorded in any form. So it is. I have been talking to prospective funders, and I say that I think you got to come and see the program to believe it. But I don't have numbers to claim, except saying that we are making change in the lives of 550 children.
Yeah, definitely, and I cannot emphasize more the same thing in our obviously our interventions through exchanges are to some extent more superficial, because we do a bunch of exchanges without necessarily continuity, but number is not definitely the only indicator, and elements of sustainability, continuity need to be built, and this is actually what we are trying to do through this network and through these webinars, to actually bring the world together and actually make our effort a joint effort. Okay, same question, Bruno, any thoughts? Impact?
Thank you, Vlad, and thanks for the question, which is very, very good, because the main point is not only intentionality for doing good things, it is also to monitor and evaluate the effectiveness of these things. So to evaluate impact, the first, well, as many other things, the first and the most important action is which impact do you want to have? If you know which kind of impact you want to have in a certain group, in a certain population, in a certain sport, in a certain country, in a certain situation, it will be easier for you to establish a process of monitoring to get a better evaluation. This means that the purpose of your implementation is very, very good. It's very, very good. No, it's very, very important. As Brian was saying, sport has a power, but has different powers. Sport can work, for example, as I was saying before, with gender empowerment. But it can also work in the inclusion of people with disabilities. Two different powers, because the population where this impact can be done is not the same and has particularities. So, depending on the impact you want to have, the tool, and it is not a coincidence that in my previous presentation I used the key as a tool, because we need to impact, we need to change, we need to act in the reality to change it. How can we do that? That's the question. And it is not a 1 million question. We need to define, first of all, to know where we are, and to know where do we want to go. Between this, where we are and where do we want to go, we need to establish the right indicators that will give us the right information to interpret if the impact is being done or not. But this is a very technical approach. The way I think it is better is to mix what in Portuguese we say the best of two different worlds. Because what Sol was saying is the most important. If you have experience in working on this, you are very intuitive. You can understand if the project is working. Then you must mix it with some data. Doesn't have to be numbers. You can interview people. You can understand the impact in the behavioral change, because we are talking mainly, when we are talking about sport education or sport for development, we are talking about behavioral change. If we are implementing a health enhancing physical activity project in a certain context, we want people that are unhealthy to become healthy. So we can have very objective indicators to support our evolution. And finally, it is different to evaluate the impact than the outcomes. I think the outcomes are quite easy to evaluate in terms of information. Impact is not so easy because it's a long term. So the different projects you do in the same place, all together in line and consistent between them, will give you the impact of these different interventions you made in that place. And I went out for 1 minute before because I was asking my son to bring this. This is the mindset. The matryoshka, you define the main goal, and the main goal is be happy. Inside you have a smaller goal, but it's consistent with the other, and it is be happy playing sports. And you have another one, even more specific, that be happy playing sports twice a week. And you can know how many people play sports twice a week. So you know how many people. I lost the smallest one, or my kids lost the smallest one. So if you can measure how many people, numbers, practice sport twice a week, you have that enough to understand if they are happy playing sports and the role of sports in their life happiness. All the three are the same, but one is more general and the other is more specific. So before evaluate, define your proposal, and then establish this line between the objective, the aim, and the impact you want to reach. And that's it.
Definitely. Thank your son for the assist, because visualizing what you had to say is extremely important. Actually, it's a very good metaphor. for your message. So going to Catherine on the same topic, impact. So Catherine, you obviously you worked in an environment that has plenty of challenges and of all kinds. So I'm curious how how you looked at that specific environment and how you measured or how the organization measures the impact.
Yeah, I want to thank you for that question, Vlad. And I want to first echo what all of the other panelists said. I believe very fundamentally that real sustainable change happens in community and happens over time, and that it's not a top-down like external actor coming in and saying, oh, this is what you need to do to improve. It has to come from the community, with the community. And so I think Brian said that, and it was echoed by everyone actually. And in terms of the way that we work to measure evaluation in this last program, there were a number of things actually that we did. But I will say that similar to what so many of the other panelists said, there's also always this sense that like you can't capture everything, and because there's so many other benefits, statistically, or you might call them externalities, but that somehow minimizes them, and I don't think they should be minimized. I think some of these long-term benefits of health and I don't want to say improved mindset, but development of new mindset skills. Yes, Bruno, theory of change. Yes, Bruno, you did a great job of actually outlining it. Sorry, I'm just looking in the chat, the theory of change. That was exactly what I was thinking when you were talking. So what we did was we actually, for the project-based learning component, the teachers and we had like an idea of the rubric that we wanted to use with the students so that we could measure their growth along these projects. But then we actually worked with the students in the classroom collaboratively to come up with the final measurement tool. So the students had a hand in the designing of the tool that was used to measure their growth, which is important on so many levels, both for their success and for their ownership over the work, for their investment in the work. But I would say when I'm thinking about impact, one of the questions I always ask myself is like, what do the kids think? What do they say? How do they feel? And again, especially we're talking about younger students, they don't often remember what you say, but they almost always remember how you made them feel. And so if you can have an impact in your organization where the students feel supported, where they feel supported, where they feel empowered, that's going to stick with them for a lot longer. And that's incredibly hard to capture. You can use qualitative data, interview data to capture that. If you have a survey and you have enough respondents and you have a comparison group, you might be able to collect quantitative data on that to really have a cohesive, M&E on that. But there's a lot of things that need to be in place in order for that statistical analysis to be truly valid. And that's one of the things that I think is hard, is that also when we're talking about sustainability and working with a community, that's a smaller group a lot of the time. And then you have to find a comparison group that's nearly identical in so many factors in order for that quant analysis to be valid. So yeah.
Definitely. And your emphasis on community actually is very important. I remember we did a program once for Turkey and Armenia. Obviously, you all know, there are differences between the two countries in a variety of ways. And we went beyond the participants. We went to their parents. We went to the school system. We went to the community. So while it is difficult to quantify the impact on the kids, it's even more difficult to quantify the impact that it has on a larger community if we have the time and interest to actually do that. And at the end of the day, many of the kids participating in our program, they tell us, look, okay, so I learned many things during your program. However, at the end of the day, I'm going back home, and I find a set of prejudices, and I find a sense of, some level of resistance. So this idea of actually looking at the program, not necessarily for the participants themselves only, but to rather enlarge the scope and in a sense bring there what they will find back home when they return. It's an important thing, but even more difficult to quantify than as you said a little bit earlier. Okay, so now we'll go back to Anna for another set of questions. In the meantime, I would like to ask everybody, just take a look at the chat. There are many resources. There are many people introduce themselves. Our goal through these webinars is actually to connect you and to help hopefully stay connected, because there's wealth of experience, in the group among participants and speakers, and we want to take advantage of that. That's one of the reasons we do the webinar. So now, Anna, you have the floor. Maybe we'll go another, 15, 20 minutes, and then, we'll have an announcement to make and all kinds of other things towards the end. So Anna.
Okay, thank you, Vlad. We have a very good question from Papu Modak. His question is from Bangladesh. Historically, sports has been a metaphor of social change. Person with disabilities has been isolated from the society, especially in the developing countries. I believe sports can break the isolation and bring disabled people in the mainstreaming society. How could we use sport as a tool to ensure education for persons with disability? So this is a very good question, because in many countries, people with disabilities cannot participate in any educational sports programs. So I would like to hear from you, Brian. Let's start with you. What kind of tools you can suggest for that? Brian?
There we go.
Okay.
Sorry, had a second there on mute. Yeah. No, thank you for that. It's a big one, and I think I've been glancing through the whole audience list. A number of representatives from Special Olympics, I think, who might be able to post some stuff in the chat as well, because obviously that's their one of their primary focuses. It does come down to, I think there's sort of three stages of development. First is awareness of a problem, education around a problem, and then ultimately behavior change. And you're talking both about individuals, family and community, family units, and then community changes, and then in some case, government and policy levels. We've seen some success. There's been a few fantastic organizations we've worked with in Southern Africa and Zimbabwe and in Namibia, that the tradition and the customs and the cultures is, if you have somebody that's either intellectually or physically disabled, you definitely just keep them in the home and never showcase it, because it's a source of shame. But these organizations were very proactive about being able to first engage the family units, and that was mostly the mothers, grandmothers, moms and dads, to be able to get the kids involved. And then it became a real, the time that they spent together in a public space was very much also a support group then for a lot of these family units. And then it became, in a very quick amount of time, which is in my head 5 to 10 years, it was also being seen by other community members, and people were engaged. And then it wasn't just, there was inclusion of disabled athletes and people that weren't disabled. So, and Papo, I think we're working. I think you're speaking with Nora on our team, so I'll talk more about you with this direct. But I think the 3 steps, sort of awareness, education, and that leads to behavior change, and it's sort of that process that has to take place.
Perfect. Thank you, Brian. We'll go to Bruno.
Well, my answer here has a kind. It's on. Is a kind of mix between my experience as a coach and physical education teacher I was some years ago, with experience in providing these kind of projects, especially the last ones in related to the work of Kantara in the Middle East. The biggest challenge, I think, to include people with disabilities and to make them feel part of the society as they are, so we don't want them to be segregated, is where is the limit between the inclusion or the need for being adapted. Because in some cases, the disability is so strong that the fact of being involved can be contrary to the will of evolving, and the person emotionally can be stressed by this situation. Of course, I'm talking about severe cases, because the main principle should be always to work towards inclusion. And one thing that can be done, and this is a very practical approach in terms of pedagogy, is to work based on the I don't know how to say it in English, the reverse inclusion. When, for example, if you have a person in a wheelchair, instead of trying to adapt the condition of this person to the tasks that the regular people is performing, maybe it is not so interesting as adapt all the people there to play something in a chair, for example. So or like it happens with seated volleyball. So everyone plays, but it plays under the rules of the person with disability. Now, this depends on the disability and depends of the context. So I think we must evaluate, and this evaluate must be something don't need to apply a tool, but we must be very acute in the pedagogical decisions we must do. I'm remembering now an experience I had some years ago. We have a kind of program where people from different backgrounds were made like community examples, and examples from many types. For example, if your club does some solidarity, your club is an example, and it was publicized like that. If you have some kind of disability and you reach the black belt in some martial art, you are an example. If you do something impressionant, very impressive, you are an example. And there was a case of a girl that had a disability, not a very severe one. It was a very, very small disability, that we wanted to present her as a role model to the community. And we did all the report with photos, and after all, we were not able to put her in this role model position, because parents didn't want to make explicit that she has a disability. This is good or bad? Because actually this girl is completely involved in society, and she plays sports, and but the will of the parents in this case was to don't make too much explicit something that exists. So it's like, no, we don't want our daughter to be treated like not a regular girl. And we had this issue. Of course, every environment is a particular environment, and the decisions must be always, and well, the global policies regarding the human rights and the rights of the persons with disability, the main policy of UNESCO, of the European Commission here in Europe, goes in the line of include, and create conditions. This is even more important. Create conditions for a very soft and implicit inclusion. In terms of sports, we have some more difficulties, but I think this is the way.
Thank you. We go to Rekha.
Yeah, I think what Papu Modak has asked is a very relevant question, but my observation in India has been that we are way behind in terms of disability inclusion and in sports as well. There is Special Olympics Bharat existing, but the program that they are doing is commendable in many ways, but it's too inadequate in such a huge country. Where the systems are not laid down in the right way. There are not enough special educators. The special schools that are existing, sports inclusion in those places have not been sort of seriously thought about, and NGOs taking up the task of reaching out to special schools and preparing programs for them. In terms of inclusion within, I mean, disabilities are also of various kinds, but where the inclusion is possible, I mean, there also, in my observation, I feel that there's lots that can be done, but there are enough resources and enough attention, more importantly, has not been given. Having said that, yes, it is certainly very important to design programs in such a way that right from the beginning we are aware of the ways and methods of including children with disabilities into programs, and maybe, you know, right training organizations need to come up, because that's also a severe I would say shortage in terms of coaches not being able to deal with children with different disabilities. So it's not more about the it's not always about the intention, it's also about the right skills not being there with coaches and educators. So it's a huge skill development area, and India has formed a sector skill council especially for disabled people. But yeah, I mean, this is just 2 years old government institution, and it's certainly a long way to go. So there's no denial to the fact that there is lots that needs to be done.
Thank you, Rebecca. We'll ask to Catherine.
Thank you both for thank you all for the comments that have been shared already. In terms of inclusion of people with disabilities in sports, I feel like the best place to start is with the universal design principles, which can really be applied to multiple environments to guide inclusion of people with disabilities, from physical grounds to how things look in a classroom. So I think that's where I think is the best place to start. And then I think in terms of programming and working with individuals is to listen to individuals and see what they want, what do they need, what accommodations are they asking, and how can we make that possible? It's best, I think, to let individuals advocate for themselves and respond. So that's kind of like very broad end of the spectrum on either side. And I think also we can look to the way that inclusion is done in schools and in classrooms as also a framework to help guide how it can be done on the pitch, as it were. So, yeah.
Thank you, Catherine. And let's hear from our last speaker, Sol.
Definitely is a difficult question in certain way, because if we are honest, in some cases, I share what our partner has spoke about coaches. You know, it's like as adults, I think it's when we're speaking about disabilities, it's like we need to rethink what it really means, and the challenges we are in front with different disabilities. So in my personal opinion, I would say that working with coaches, working with educators, it's like it's our first step or our first talent for inclusion. You know, it's not to keep aside, you know, this issue, but it's integrated. And integrated is listening at them, listening at their needs. As a concrete case, working in soccer, for example, with our Argentinian Soccer Association, we have some teams that they are with disabilities, in this case, deaf. So what we do is like try to help with our tools, our technological tools, so as to help to make easier their day by day. It's like another way is what we do is to bring them close to our not disability word for saying in certain way. So it's like what we do is like to make them be part of us. Of course, it depends, as Bruno, some of our colleagues share, it depends on disability, no, of course, and it depends on the sport you are speaking. But definitely disabilities can teach us, as we already know, also everybody knows, that teach us about different things. So it's like, I think that the disabilities can become the master codes for us, you know, and to entertain and to help to work together, so as to help them, you know, to understand there is that there are new and different challenges of day by day, even though do they have that disability. But as I work, for example, for elite players or for youth, or that they are not with disabilities, sometimes even though they act and their behavior is as someone's as they were having a disability, and some people said they are not, that they are having a disability, definitely they are telling their life in an amazing way. So I think that just for a resume, that I will bring them closer. I will bring them closer, and I will listen more to them, because so as to be part, well, and be able to learn about them. No?
Thank you very much to all the speakers. I see lots of questions, but we unfortunately don't have time. If you can answer on some of them in the chat, that will be great. If not, all our participants can contact our speakers if they have any questions and then want to learn from them. Now I'll switch to Vlad.
Yeah, so I was muted for a while. So thank you, Anna. So and fascinating conversation. You know, again, that means, you know, please stay in touch, you know, through the connections in the chat. One, you know, thing I'll ask you after we'll go through a couple of next points of this conversation, the speakers, if you could, and think about it, you know, if you have one sentence to describe what's the most important thing in using sports as a tool for education, what that one sentence be? You know, so in one sentence that resumes your, you know, your motto working on using sports as a tool for education. So think about it, and in the meantime, I would like to see if Bulkaid Majd is with us. So while we talked about sports and education for an hour in this webinar, Bulkaid's organization, Tibu in Morocco, they have a whole conference, you know, like 3 or 4 days dealing with this. Tibu is an amazing organization, you know, probably one of the best I've seen in reaching out deeply into the different communities in Morocco. So I'm sure the event is going to be fantastic, and I would like, you know, as many people, you know, present here in the webinar, you know, to become aware of that. So if Majd is with us, he will post in the chat the connections and the links. That maybe 2 or 3 minutes, Majd, if you could describe a little bit what's going to happen in Morocco starting in a few days.
Yes, perfect. I'm just sharing the elements I'll share right away after my presentation for all of you. So thanks for the opportunity to present our event. We're organizing the first Education Through Sports Summit in Africa. Due to the actual condition, this summit will be made in a hybrid way, partly physical and partly digital. There will be few activities, some with kids in the Sports for Development program, some with the STEM approach, science, technology, engineering, and maths through sports. We're also organizing a competition for NEETs and sub-Saharan migrants present in Morocco to compete on the most innovative project in sports. And like said Vlad, we are also organizing 40 conferences the 4th and the 5th of April, like I told you, in a hybrid way. So there will be 4 main topics: women in sports, innovation in sports, sports for development, and sports for social change. So for each theme, there will be 10 speakers about different subtopics. We will have like Sam Vincent from UUA, which is present here in Morocco for the event. We also have Jeff Goldner from STEM Sports, Roy Kessel from Sports Philanthropy for the US speakers, also European speakers like Naïm Al-Garmah, Bruno Lalande from Women's Sports Africa, Ahmed Tawfiq from Enfants Bénin Debout, and also speakers from Morocco to share their knowledge, to share their inspiring experience to elevate people and to inspire people about sports and all the elements. And I will send right away the program of all of those conferences and all of the link to connect to those conferences. And feel free to connect, to subscribe, and to ask some information. I will send you my email address, and feel free to contact me. And thanks for the opportunity, Vlad.
Thank you, Majd. I'm sure it's going to be an amazing event. So please post everything in the chat, and we are going to also, spread this information all over, for our network that has right now 1,500 people. Obviously, COVID is not it's a thing for all of us. Actually, we were invited to Morocco for this event.
Yes.
I'm very frustrated that we are not there. However, one thing that I like to say, there are multiple things that organize in the virtual space, including soon our colleagues from HFI 360 and sports diplomacy will have a series of training on mental health issues, tremendously important. So, we'll also spread, and we did already, information about that. That being said, I would like to invite, if he's still with us, Ryan Murphy is the program officer from Sports Diplomacy at the State Department. So they sponsor all these amazing exchanges, opportunities, events, and I'm sure that he has a few things to say about this. And then I'll go back briefly to the speaker for your one motto sentence about sports and education. So Ryan, are you with us? So Ryan cannot unmute himself. Could somebody try to unmute Ryan from the organizers?
There it is.
Yes, perfect.
I'm not going to take that personally. I know you probably didn't want to hear from me anyway, but So thank you all. This is obviously a great topic and something that is instrumental in all the work that we do at the U.S. Department of State and the Sports Diplomacy Division. So first and foremost, thank you to the panelists for discussing this amazing topic, and thank you for World Learning and the team putting on these webinars. I did want to thank everyone again for participating. I liked how the conversation did delve into the disability sport aspect. As some of you might know, prior to coming to the State Department about 12 years ago, I worked for Special Olympics International. So it was great to see so many people from Special Olympics and the different programs around the globe involved in the call and being part of this. So it's such an amazing topic that World Learning and Vlad and his team had done at least 1 or 2 seminars previously about disability sports. So feel free to go back and take a look at those, but it's certainly a topic that we will continue to bring to light and discuss through these different seminars in the future. So thank you all again for being part of this. It is great to see Thibaut and hear a little bit more about the event that will take place in Casablanca, both virtually and slightly in person. We too have a lot of partners that are involved in that, and it's just such a great event that they're running there. So again, thank you all for joining. We appreciate these, and it's always great to be a part of these events every 2 to 3 weeks. So thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. So now let's go, briefly to the, the speakers for that one model sentence. So what's important from your perspective? One sentence that defines your approach to sports as a tool for education. So let's start with Catherine.
One sentence to sum that up would be that sports is just as much, if not more, of a tool for the development of social emotional skills and 21st century skills as all of the activities that are being done in classrooms, and that if we can start to merge these fields together in support of the development of those skills, our students will be better off.
Great, thank you, Rika. Could be 2 sentences. It's not restrictive. So Rika, what do you think?
Yeah, to sum up, sports should be used as a tool to motivate and support children to complete formal education so that they can gain dignified employment that closes the whole circle and pushes them permanently out of poverty.
Sol?
Yeah, okay. Well, for me, I would say sport is a way of life that reflects in and outside the field. So how we play, you know, how we play inside the ground is the way we play in life.
Brian?
Purposeful play creates education outside the classroom.
Great, 1 sentence. Bruno?
Well, I will finish as I started. If we want to concrete the powerful of sport, we need institutional and pedagogical intention. Without intentionality, we cannot, without intentionality and passion, as Sol says, we cannot have impact. And that's the only way to do. Okay, are you seeing the Matryoshka?
Yeah.
Behavior change, community change, politic change. That's the way.
That's a perfect ending. So I would like to thank all our speakers, the panelists for this wonderful webinar, all the participants. I'm sure we got certain things said in chat, you know, that they viewed it as very useful and very, very, very productive. Again, you know, thank the team. Anna, you know, remember that there's going to be an Armenia-Romania game in Bucharest now after what happened last night. So thanks so much, Anna, for moderating this. The team at World Learning, Aaron, Laurel, Nicole, and Juliana, for supporting this. Just to remind you that this has been part of the International Sports Programming Initiative of the Sports Diplomacy Division of the State Department, working with World Learning, us, and Digital Communication Network. Be safe, and hopefully we'll have an opportunity to meet each other in person soon. So thank you so much for being part of this. Bye-bye.
Thank you.